Hey, thank you. So this is all pretty new to me because I'm no longer with Procter & Gamble, so I'm fully in the startup scene. As of October 1st, I have spread my wings from the corporate world and have taken on Ria full-time. But you know what? I'm still recovering from the recruitment process at Procter & Gamble. It's pretty intensive. And a little bit about that is actually in the interview process, a very common question that people ask is, what's your passion? And I'm a very passionate person about Ria, but when it came to selling myself to Procter & Gamble, I lied. I'm not gonna lie, I did lie. They said, what are you passionate about? And I was like, okay, so how do I connect the dots with Procter & Gamble? And they love a good personal story, right? So I was like, the real reason I'm in America is because of Procter & Gamble. Like, the only person my parents knew at the time coming from Turkey was my uncle who worked for Procter & Gamble. So I was like, I feel this need to work for Procter & Gamble because, America has granted me so many opportunities, and the life I have here is really nothing like it would be in Turkey, especially as a woman and person who wants to be an entrepreneur. And so they were like, wow, yeah. And a lot of the conversations also stemmed from, my immigrant parents talking about the fluctuating, Turkish lira and, how that impacts, our well-being in America. And when we go back to Turkey, there's this stark contrast between, I go back to Turkey every summer growing up and pick up hazelnuts on my family's hazelnut farm versus coming back to America and having a very privileged life. And so what I want to talk about is branding and innovation, right? I woke up this morning and I was like, wait, what's the topic I'm supposed to talk about? And so branding and innovation, to me, that's all about storytelling. And when I created Ria, I didn't expect it to turn into a company. I didn't expect it to have an LLC. I didn't even expect it to be like this brand. Ria started as a passion project. It started as a platform for me to tell my story and for me to connect with other people who also had immigrant stories. And so through the storytelling process, I was able to create a community. And this community saw themselves within my immigrant story, and they felt empowered to tell their own stories. And so how were all these stories told? It was actually through the fortune-telling process. And it's weird because we're living in these super uncertain times, and fortune-telling became this huge thing. I'm a Leo, and so if you know your moon rising or sun rising, I don't know, your horoscope, this also became like a very trending thing during COVID. And so over the course of these, 2 to 3 years that I've been doing Ria and seeing fortune telling and horoscopes and seeing this trend happening, the chief creative officer of LPK was talking about being in that emergent space, right? Being in that emergent space of the conversation and putting your brand in that. And I saw this opportunity for Ria to play in that. And so what ended up happening is my life is all about social media, being a millennial. I think I'm the youngest speaker here, so my mom's not here. Usually my mom's here doing the fortune tellings, and she comes to all my speeches and video records it, but she's not here. So if you ever come to a fortune telling process, you'll see Mama Ria. But anyways, in the social media sphere, I wanted to create these online storytelling platforms, but then also IRL, in real life connections. So what would happen is, I'll just walk you guys through the process. You enter a shop that I've transformed into the space as if you've walked into my grandmother's living room. You sit on something like a really fine Turkish rug with an ottoman there and a low table, similar to how I would sit at my grandma's house. I usually like to sit on the floor. And my mom brews you Turkish coffee. She brings it over. And Turkish coffee is a 500-year-old tradition. So something that has withstood the so many years. And so it's the first brewing method, which means the grounds are still left in the cup. And when you finish the liquid, the grounds settle to the bottom. You turn your cup over onto its saucer, and the grounds create lines on the side of the cup. Your fortune's then told from those lines. Now, my mom or me comes over, and we start to tell your fortune from the grounds. It's not something that you need to create your life plan for, but it's a time for you to reflect and pause and think a little bit about the future. And it is also a way to give a lot of people hope. And especially during these uncertain times, this is something that a lot of people turn to. And what I noticed is that people want to share their stories, and people want to talk about their lives, and people want to share like what's deeply within them, but they just like are never really given the opportunity to, take the time to talk to a stranger that they may never even see again about their stories. And I think what's so beautiful about this is that people become more vulnerable when they're talking maybe to a stranger that they may never see again, because they have less of a fear of being judged. But through this process, when you're sitting together and you're taking pictures of this fortune and you're posting it on social media, and then you're telling and sharing your story, it creates this, it amplifies the community building aspect, because digital platforms like Instagram allow each other to connect with people all over the world. And so what I want to also talk to you guys about is this social media brand building, this digital brand building. This is something I did at Procter & Gamble. This is something I'm doing at Ruya, and this is something that I'm also helping with other startups. Digital brand building is an art and a science. It is something where you have to take risks. It is something where you have to be authentic, and I roll my eyes at the word authentic because it's so overused, and I don't know if people even know what that means anymore, but honestly, to me, it's literally just not lying when someone asks, like, what's your passion? As I did, when I was first trying to sell myself to Procter & Gamble. And now I have this great privilege of not having to lie what my passion is. It's literally just me being a first American Turkish immigrant trying to be a positive voice for other immigrants in this country. And so what I want to say about digital brand building is being authentic. And what I think is the most crucial part is bringing people along for the journey. So building in public. A lot of other digital brand builders talk about this. Building in public, what does that mean? That means when I was building the shop, I showed people on Instagram when we got flooded. I showed them us taking over 48 hours to paint a wall, and it was my first time painting a wall of that size with a stencil, and like me messing up 10,000 times and having to repaint it. And so I think showing people your mess ups, showing people that you're authentic in those mess ups, and allowing people to understand that it is a process, and when you take people along for the process, they create a stronger connection to the brand. So building in public is one. The art and science I would say about digital brand building is also, how do you ride the wave of virality? So one example I like to give with this in Ruya is when we won a feature on Food Network, which was like our biggest media outlet at the time when it happened. I was like, what do I put? I like overthought my caption, and I was like thinking about what was happening at the time. At the time, Biden had just won the presidency, and there was this viral video of Kamala Harris calling Joe Biden, I don't know if you guys remember this, being like, Joe, we did it, Joe. And I was like, that's how I felt. Like, I literally called my co-founder, and I was like, Christopher, we did it, Christopher. And so we recreated that video, we posted that as the caption, and people were like, they totally immediately got it, because when you're on the platform, everyone was looking at that video of Kamala Harris, like, talking to Joe Biden about when they won the presidency. And I didn't win the presidency, I just won a feature on Food Network, but it literally felt like I won the presidency. So riding the wave of virality. There's all of these things where we think about brand equity and we put each other, like, our brands in boxes, but sometimes I like to tell people, like, look at what's just happening on the platform and how do you insert your brand into that. Even if it doesn't necessarily make sense, your brand will benefit because other people are talking about it and it's a viral moment. So for example, another example is on Olay. Cat memes are huge on Instagram, but what does Olay skincare have to do with cat memes? It doesn't matter. We just created creative that had cat memes that had lasers shooting out of their eyes, and it was our best performing ad. So just to show, large corporations can also play into this, even if you're just doing something like Olay skincare. So building in public, being authentic, and then also I would say authentic storytelling, right? So the fortune telling aspect, just to bring it all around, is the fact that people also want to share their stories, and people want to have their light shown on them. And so what I also want to bring back is the fact that Ruya is a positive voice for immigrants in America. And where that really stemmed from is reading narratives as I was growing up about two types of immigrants. There's one type of immigrant who's like the field worker, the low labor job, and the dishwasher. You know, people in America who might see that as, lower class work, but to an immigrant, that's a great opportunity, right? Especially when you look at the conversion rates for our currencies. And so that was one narrative that was convoluted by the media, and I think it also created a complicated relationship between America and immigrants. The second narrative that I saw was the super immigrant. So to me, the super immigrant that I looked up to was Hamdi, the founder of Chobani. This narrative is also interesting because it fuels people's dreams and it gives people hope, but then it also casts a shadow on if you are not achieving at that level, then are you not great? My parents worked multiple jobs to give me and my brother the life that we now have. And so was the fact that my mom worked at Panera while I was growing up as a second income not great? It's not the fact that she wasn't Hamdi, but I think there's also another shadow that's cast when you only look at the super immigrant narrative. So what we also want to do through Ruya and through the storytelling process is that there's greatness that lives within all of us, even if you're not a super immigrant. And so what I want to say is that storytelling connects all humanity, regardless of what country you're from, what politics you abide to, what religion you are. And at least that is the good news, and that is the good headline that we can put out. Thank you.